All right, boys. So yesterday we had the another interview, and today we have another interview for Summoner. So Summoner is coming out very soon. I think it's going to be somewhere around December, as following the roadmap. And I know a bunch of you guys are interested in it. A bunch of you guys were asking me, "Hey, can you interview someone for Summoner?" Lustboy went around and asked people for us. So real thank you on the Lustboy section, working real hard to get us a Summoner player here. Now we have a Summoner player today. Now, I actually don't know her nickname and everything, so we're going to start with the intro. 네.
안녕하세요. 저 한국 서버에서 서머너를 플레이 중인 나래고요. 현 카렐리고스 최단클 해가지고 서머너로 랭킹에 올라가 있습니다.
Her name is, you guys can call her Nare, right? What she does is she plays a summoner, usually a hell contents with PvP, like the Infernal contents, right? The best part of the stuff is, the new Caliligos content? So this is the newest content that we have. The Infernal Caliligos. She has the shortest time for summoner. So she's technically a ranker DPS for Infernal content. So this is like one of those players that are super pro, that knows what they're doing.
처음부터 로스트아크를 아예 첫날부터 시작을 해서 좀 스킬 이펙트가 많이 화려한 편이 마음에 들었었고.
I asked her about why she chose the class, and then when she started and everything was when this game came out. She started as a summoner. No one really played summoner, and she thought the skill effects and all these things were really good and like looking pretty, I guess. And then within, she played different, like a magician class in different MMOs or different games as well. Wow, 1607 with that. You see that title on the left, guys? The title 천둥을 내리 저기 그거죠.
이거는 클리어만 하면 주는 칭호고 여기 나와요.
Wow, she's in there, dude. Wow. Holy. Dude, I've never interviewed a ranker before. Fastest clear. Amazing. 자, 그러면 so let's talk about the class, why she would recommend summoner and why she would not recommend summoner for specific amount of people.
서머너 자체 교감 서머너 같은 경우는 딜 분산이 되게 많이 되어 있어요. 그래서 약간 트라이의 서머너라는 말이 나올 정도로 슈르디라는 특보에 만화 회복 특보가 있는데 이게 파티원 전체에게 적용이 돼요. 그래서 만화가 부족한 파티원과 함께 가면은 만화가 부족한 파티원들이 되게 좋아하고.
As for the recommendation, so the particular engravings that you guys see here, so the white engraving over here and then the red engraving. So basically what this is summon engraving where it looks like a French with the summon. And for the particular build that she plays, the DPS is very divided a lot, as in it's equally distributed to a very different number of skills. So they call it like a tri-party summoner. So if you're in like a tri-party summoner, since the damage itself is equally distributed and the summons are doing most of the damage, it is really good and really highly recommended for players who are scared. Scared doing a tri-party, that you're kind of scared doing getting hit and the long animation, all that stuff. The summons are gonna do most of that damage for you, correct? So it's important for players who are new to the game and then who wants to do DPS at a very easy pace and not being such a dead weight of the party. It's a really good class to try it out. The stuff that you don't recommend as this class particular. And one of the biggest one is the particular class that she uses is the summons, right? The summons tend to, in a very simple term that I translate, the summons tend to troll during the party, and it has a lot of bugs too. And what that means is sometimes this particular the summon, the Maririn. So the Maririn, the bear looking guy, so I call him Tibbers. So what he does is he counts as a player as well. So sometimes when you play the raid, the bosses have an additional pattern when you get hit by a certain initial pattern. And also for another thing is, if you guys are interested in super high ceiling DPSs, it's a little bit harder to achieve that because in terms of this particular build, the floor is the floor is much higher. It's very stable DPS, very safe. So if you're someone who's looking for high numbers, right, high DPS, all this thing, like high risk, high return stuff, this is not the class for you. for this particular build. She said she killed at least maybe she killed at least 10 people because of the summon. The Tibbers trolled. The Tibbers trolled and killed a lot of his party mates. So we're going to go over skills first, just to show what kind of skills that this Swiftness Summoner utilizes. And the first one we are looking at is Water Elemental. So she uses this to pop Conviction and Judgment most of the time. And as you notice here, she also has MP Recovery on the right. And so when you summon this, what happens is when this summon is summoned, you have additional mana recovering for you. So if you have mana issues, this is one of the skills that most people utilize in order for you to rotate your skills more properly.
다음은 이끼늪이란 스킬인데요. 반각을 붙이는 시너지 스킬이고 서머너의 핵심 중에 하나인 스킬이에요.
So Sticky Moss Swamp is one of the most important ones because you can see here is she has a ready attack. Right. She has a ready attack tripod. So you have that tripod there, the ready attack, and then she has the corrosion diffusion there. So those two tripods, what it does is it increases your attack power. Is you have that ready attack, you got that synergy up, and squeeze in as much DPS in within that buff time. And then she also mentioned one of the summons at the bottom, the Elcid, has the same attribute of giving additional attack power to summoners. So this particular skill up to level 7 is almost mandatory as it sounds like because it gives you both synergy and it gives you attack buff as well.
소환수 중 하나인 마리린 스킬인데요.
So we have Maririn too. We have the Tibbers. Okay, the second, almost secondary, third, very strong. So the stronger DPS type skill with the summon. When he's summoned, you can also use that particular skill again to command certain attack for that guy. So and as for the tripods, as you guys see here, it increases the summon time and then it increases the attack powers and the skills that are efficient as well. Right, so the reason why she has it as a charge command is because it does the most damage, and Maririn's goal is to do damage.
다음은 돼지붕괴라는 스킬인데요. 고대탕을 후딜이 있는데 고대탕 후딜 캔슬할 때 사용하는 딜링 스킬입니다.
So the Earth Collapse is a secondary DPS skill. So most of the time, this particular skill is used to cancel the Ancient Spear. So this particular class has a lot of tricks to cancel animations because she tends to have a long animation. So as she mentioned here, she uses the Earth Collapse skill as a side DPS skill, but at the same time, you utilize this skill to cancel other skills together.
다음은 슈르디라는 스킬인데요. 이 슈르디가 유지 중에는 치명타 자버프가 생겨요. 이 두 번째 특보를 선택하면 파티원들의 만화 회복 속도가 증가되는 그런 스킬이에요.
This skill, Shurdi, is one of the important ones too. And as you see over there at the Shining Grove, what that Shining Grove tripod on the number 1 tripod, the third one, is it increases your crit rate. And if it's at level 5, it's 11.8. And the second tripod would be just making it bigger for more DPS. And the third tripod, which is super interesting, is its MP recovery. And what it does is all party members, MP natural recovery is up to 40%. So if you have a summoner in a party and then you don't have that much mana, like Zeals, right? He always complains about mana, right? If she plays with Zeals, he wouldn't have much mana problem.
다음은 엘시드라는 스킬인데요. 이걸 깔아두면 이끼늪처럼 자기 공격력 증가 버프가 생겨요.
So we got Elcid. So remember when we were talking about the swamp, right? So Elcid also has that ready attack buff, which is the second tripod on the first row. It gives you 44.4% attack power for 5 seconds. So when you are running out of that attack buff for the swamp, you kind of replace it with Elcid, and then after you spawning her, right? And then you have the other tripods for obviously DPS. And what she has mentioned is the range is a little shorter, so you have to make sure that you spawn maybe a little closer to the boss that you can utilize her DPS efficiently.
떨어지고 조금 움직인 다음에 고대 창을 써도 공격력 증가 버프가 묻어 있어서
The Ancient Spear, this is your main DPS skill, guys. And the main DPS skill is, as you noticed on the tripods here, you go for the cooldown tripod, and then you have the DPS tripod on left and right as well. For the first one in the second row, and then the second one in the third row. What's important for this particular skill is you have to have the attack buff before casting the skill. And since it takes about two seconds to cast the full skill and land it, But the attack buff itself is 5 seconds each. So she said that you don't have to worry too much about fitting everything in. It's important for you to obviously have the buff there, have the attack buff ready to go, and then maybe you can move it around a little bit to position yourself, and then use the Ancient Spear to land it while you have the attack buff ready. So we have the last summon, which is Pauru, and what Pauru does is it's a summon skill, and then he will just do a DPS. He lasts a little shorter. He lasts shorter than Maririn does, and you know, obviously since he does the DPS as well, you have all the DPS tripods based on that. So as of some of the skills that we want to mention for if you happen to play a different build is, you know, the spec build. Electric Storm is one of the more popular ones as well because it fills a lot of identity gauge, a lot of identity meter really quickly. So these are one of the skills that some of the other builds use. And let's ask some of the other skills that, you know, the other class may use as well.
네, 마력의 질주나 윙드 스피릿이 쓸만한데요. 마력의 질주 같은 경우는 무력화가 되게 필요한 레이드가 나왔다 하면은 저는 대지 붕괴랑 마력의 질주를 스위칭할 것 같아요.
So another skill that she wanted to mention was the Steed charge, right? What Steed charge is, if you have the destruction charger, the first one from the third line, the stagger goes up a lot. So with this skill, if she happens to notice that, oh, maybe we need some more stagger, she replaces the skill with the Earth Collapse. The Earth Collapse skill, she kind of replaces that if she thinks that we need a little bit more stagger as well.
고대창 다음으로 쓴 스킬인데요. 지금
So as for Wing Spirit, the reason why she wanted to mention that as well is because it does a lot of damage. It does a little bit less than the Ancient Spear, but now the meta is the swiftness getting much higher, right? Because the average swiftness is so much higher of the game right now. So you actually waste time holding this particular skill. This is a holding skill, Wing Spirit. If you have less swiftness, maybe it's a skill that you would consider using it because the total damage itself is actually pretty good. But now that the swiftness is so high, it's better to just rotate more skills, correct? That's why the skill has been thrown away. So it might be a good choice if you have a little bit lower swiftness to a point, so that you can maximize DPS accordingly. So as for Awakening, really quickly, the Kelsion is usually used for the high swiftness summon summoner, and the Bagron's Wrath is mostly used on the Spec Summoner, where it fills up the identity gauge, plus it does a lot of damage on top of it.
D가 서머너는 이렇게 있는데요. 각각 활용하는 용도가 조금 다릅니다. 첫 번째 아이덴티티 같은 경우는
Okay, so we're going to talk detail on identity because, you know, we were gonna go over the builds, but she told me like you want to talk about the identity. The reason why I said this is because I don't know much about Summoner, and apparently the identity flips a lot and then utilizes it accordingly, right? So the first one, her identity, she has 5 different skills. Okay, so the first one is mostly utilized for destruction, the weak point. So the second level summon, they usually use it for stagger, plus it also has weak points on it too. So let's say for Valten, she uses the first summon, which is the green one, to land as many weak points as she can. And after second one, if you need a little bit of stagger plus you need a little bit of weak point at the same time, you use the second level too. So Phoenix over here is usually used for clearing like trash mobs, and this is also including what I've asked her was, you know, the Vicus tentacles. When Vicus tentacles spawn, this identity skill with the Phoenix is actually really good. Clear specific trash mobs when it adds a spawn that requires you to do some mechanics. So this fourth identity skill, the purple one, is often used for huge stagger. For example, if the particular raid requires a lot of stagger, instead of the second one, you use the fourth one because it does about 1.5 times more stagger than the second one. So you know, when she says Deva all the time, you know, like this is the only skill that I use, and I told her that, you know, this is the only thing I use. So basically that is because it does the most damage. And you know me, I'm a little big monkey brain. All I do is use the one with the big dams, right? But I didn't know at least the swiftness, because they utilize all the elemental spawns. But yep, this is often used to do the most damage, because since she has more utilities at her arsenal to swap elemental skills around and then do DPS accordingly. Not like me, guys. Don't be like me, being the monkey brain and only use the fifth one, okay?
교감 같은 경우는 극신속에 그다음에 나머지 부스탯으로 치명을 주고 보석 같은 경우는 멸화 7개, 흑염 4개를 사용해요.
비싸네요.
네, 돈 많이 들죠?
Well, expensive. So we're talking about the build right now. For combat stats and gems, real quick. The swiftness communication summoner is high swiftness and just necklace on crit, and she utilizes 7 damage gems on the spawns and the ancient skills as well. It's pretty expensive side. So since the summons itself doesn't really need a cooldown gem, since they don't need it, the cooldowns that is required is, you know, the buff skills and then the DPS skills, and you have the Elcid here, and then you have the ancient spear in order for it to rotate very, very quickly, and then rest of them can be all stacked with damages. That's why, you know, if you just have the big damage gems, the 7 damage gems, all the damage is equalized all across the board. So it's an expensive section, but it's actually it has a pretty good potential because you use a lot of damage gems.
각인 같은 경우는 신속 캐릭이다 보니까 돌격대장이 필수적으로 들어가고, 그다음에 아드레날린이 유지가 되게 쉬운 직업이라서 아드레날린 효율도 잘 받아서 아드레날린 사용하고.
So as for engraving, talking about it a little quickly, obviously the summon one is going to be having the class, the communication summon, the white one. Then you have that, and then since you're going high swiftness, you have Raid Captain with the full efficiency. And Adrenaline is super easy because you're summoning all the time and you're utilizing skills all the time, so you're gonna have high stacks all the time. And as we shown was, Shurdi itself has crit rate added into the tripod, right, guys? So since you have that as well, you have base crit with 15% on Adrenaline, and then you have 11.8 on Shurdi itself, and then you have the crit itself on top of that on combat stats. So this is a class where she can take advantage of Keen Blunt very, very easily, right? So they usually take Keen Blunt as well, and then you have Grudge, the obvious ones. And as for the high summon, she uses that for utility. So the high summon engraving itself, what it does is it just gives you an additional attributes and additional power to the identity skill summon. So you kind of use that for utility based. So again, I asked an additional question about double class engraving because I've seen that on the Discord about double class engraving, right? So this particular double class engraving, if you're playing the summon build for it, so this class, it increases stagger, and then it just makes the high ancient summons much better overall. So in terms of utility, it's just most efficient. But if you think it's too expensive for it, because it feels like it's expensive because you have to get the class engravings are really expensive, right, guys? So you can use something like Ether Predator as level 1 as another choice if you want.
수영 타입을 올려주는 환가 사용하고요. 부정 컨텐츠 같은 경우 치명타를 주는 직업이 있을 때 구원을 좀 수업을 자주 해요.
So as for, we didn't talk about the Relic Set in details because you guys been asking about that. So for Relic Set, this particular high swiftness class, remember we have the Shurdi's tripod for 11.8-ish, and then you also have Adrenaline. And now to cover that up without any combat stat, well, plus the crit is you have to have like a Relic Set of Hallucination to cover the rest of the crit rate that is needed to have Keen Blunt very efficient, right? She uses the hallucination most of the time, unless if there's a lot of crit synergy. Like if there's a lot of crit synergy in your team, she swaps to salvation, because salvation just gives you a little bit more DPS on top.
일단 트리시온에서 기본적으로 소환수를 전부 깔고 공중 버프를 바른 다음에 소환수 스킬 눌러주면서 고창 후딜 캔슬, 이게 기본적인 콤보예요. 그럼 고창 일단 후딜 캔슬하는 거부터 보여드리면, 이게 그냥 고창을 하면 이렇게 공중에 뜨는 모션이 있거든요. 그래서 고창을 이게 후딜 캔슬을 하면 공중에 뜨는 모션 없이 바로 다음 스킬이 연동돼요.
Okay. So what she have just done there was she cast Ancient Spear, and then she cast Earth Shatter to cancel that jumping motion. So you notice here, she jumps like that, right? And then she lands. To cancel that animation of jump, you have to cast a different skill, which is the earth shattering. wherever
공중에
that skill
뜬
is called.
상태에서는 움직여지지가 않아서 그때가 사실 맞기 좋은 타이밍이거든요. 그래서
네,
만약에
earthquake. 네.
레이드를 하실 때 이렇게 캔슬한 다음에 피하시면은 훨씬 더 레이드가
오, I
수월해져요.
see. 혹시 스패도 안 되나요? 고창 쓸
네,
때?
네, 공중에 떴을 때 스페도 안 써져서 이렇게
Oh, I see.
캔슬한 다음에 가는 게 좀 더 빨라요.
Oh, I see. I see. So Ancient Spear, when she's up in the air, she can't use spacebar or anything. So what happens is she casts the Ancient Spear, and before the Ancient Spear, she either used the Identity Ancient skill, or she used the Earth Collapse to cancel that animation to spacebar away, or cast something else really quickly. So this is how to squeeze in more DPS, squeeze in to maneuver yourself much easier. It's a good tip. So the combination that she has shown before was, obviously she uses the swamp for the synergy, get the summons out, get the ancient spears out, and then the cycle just starts from there. 그쵸? Yep. So she summons like that. She uses the water summon, uses the ancient spear, cancels out, and then that's how she utilizes most of the combination of all the skills that she needs required to start the fight. That's nice.
공증 스킬 넣어서 고대창 넣어주고 공증이 끝날 때쯤에 일시드로 이렇게 공증을 이어주는 느낌이에요.
Okay. So what's very important there is, how she used the swamp and then she used the Elcid after the attack buff has almost run out. So this is very important because she has that 44.4% attack power buff, right? So she spawns it on an alternation to make sure that she has the buff 100% of the time, while obviously doing some of the ancient identity skill damage or the ancient spear. I asked her about the awakening. When do you utilize the awakening? Is when if the boss itself is not going to go anywhere for 20 seconds. For example, a good example is, let's say you guys fight Valton goes to a cutscene and then nothing happens, right? When you have Kelsion out during that time, that's Smoge. Like, he doesn't get to do any DPS. So what they usually do is, you can start by using the awakening just to start doing damage. But you kind of hope that the boss doesn't go anywhere. The boss doesn't do any special patterns within that 20 seconds. But when you know that the boss is going to be chilling around for 20 seconds, that's when you usually use it to squeeze that as much DPS in with the awakening itself. Alright, so next up here, what I wanted to show you guys, what I asked her to do is doing a little bit of DPS test in the beginning. Because I haven't seen that yet on an actual real play. Also shows of the rotation of particular skills as well. Because she showed the rotation of skills, we saw it in detail, and then we just gotta see it in real action.
이걸 패션 시작하면서 눌러주는 게 국룰이거든요.
Ah, okay. So you started after.
근데 처음에 지금 잘못 굴려가지고.
Wait, why is it so high? Oh, so I see. So she uses a skill to cancel the ancient spear. She has so many different skills to cancel ancient spear from. So check this out. She's doing that cancel ancient spear with the identity skill as well. And since identity skill or anything is up, so she's swapping it accordingly, right? She has a second one, the salamander, right? So she casts the salamander, right? And then spawns accordingly. All that stuff. But what's important here is the DPS and stuff, the number is not that much, right? The numbers are smaller, but what's important is she can move around and dodge everywhere, but still able to have the uptime. So that's when these kind of classes have the upper advantage in DPS sometimes, when the tri-party is running around everywhere. Because when you're doing a tri-party, everyone's busy dodging, except Summoner. That's why Summoner is one of the best class, especially the Swiftness Summoner is one of the best class for tri-parties, because it pushes DPS even if you don't want to, if that makes sense.
특화 신속 환각이나 특화 치명 궁원 이런 식으로 유물셋을 가고요. 이게 딜이 마지막 아덴인 아키르의 한 60~70%가 몰려있는 구조라서 아키르의 공증을 무조건 묻히는 식으로 플레이를 하면.
So we're going to talk about, this is not her specialty by the way, but she knows a little bit about it. That's why I'm going to, I'm gonna ask and about the spec summoner that you guys feel that it's interested on. To cover it while she's setting it up, is the Spec Summoner is a little bit different. It's not divided. It's not equally divided by summons. It's not equally divided by other things. What's important is you go high spec and have the most efficiency of damage on the fifth elemental, the fifth high elemental attack, and then you go salvation as well. You either have a crit salvation, or you go swift hallucination. While you're using the fifth high elemental skill, it is important for you to add in the swamp or the Elcid to get the attack buff. So you know they see the so engraving here. The choices are something like. So you have the high elemental, and then you have hitmaster, you have grudge, you have keen blunt, because keen blunts can be very easy to be maintained because of Shurdi. And for level 1 engravings, you have something like ether predator. You can also have level 1 adrenaline if you want, because if you have level 3, it's kind of, if you think it's hard, because some Spec Summoner is much slower, which we'll show you here.
이 전기 폭풍이라는 스킬이 그 액션 스킬인데 이 스킬을 맞추면 보시는 것처럼 아이덴티티 게이지가 한 번에 거의 풀까지 차.
Oh, so that electronic storm that you just saw, it fills up so fast. You guys saw that? It fills pretty fast. So and then you use the high elemental skill, and then you use your ancient spear, and then you do the animation cancel within the attack buff, as in the swamp buff, if that makes sense for you guys. Oh wow. So as for the F skill, the Pauru is activated for DPS. So what you do is you spawn it, and when he goes away from spawning, what happens is you get an attack buff for 5 seconds. So if you're like a really good summoner player, what they do is they count it, and as soon as Pauru goes off the summon, they put that in mind, and they put the ancient DPS skills on top of it, so that it's like 100% efficiency. So those kind of calculated play is very important for a Spec Summoner. Yep. Cool. Noted.
이게 공 활용한 3아키로 콤보를 이렇게 쓰는 걸로 알고 있어요. 물론 저는 특화는
Did
잘
you
안
just
해요.
use it 3 times?
네.
3번 쓸 수 있어요?
네, 이게 처음에 아덴을 채워놓고 시작을 하고 그다음에 전기 폭풍을 깔아두면
Okay, use the first one. Then you throw one.
아키르터랑 전기 폭풍 깔아둔 거 해가지고 아덴이 쳐서 3아키를
Wow. That's a triple ancient skill opener. That big damn. 저도 못할 듯. There's no way I would do this either.
이게 아드로핀 들어갈 때 한 번 하는 콤보.
Oh, so that's an Adrophin combo. Well, I think what's more important is you can fit it in one Adrophin. So as her opinion for this, as for swiftness build, the swiftness communication build, it's flat damage, high floor, consistent damage. But if you guys are looking for something like a bursty build, right? Summoner has both options for it. Nare wants to show an example of her clip fighting the actual Caliligos. Okay.
그러면 이게 공격을 못하는 패턴인데 자유로운 포지셔닝 원거리라는 장점을 살려서 키 고대창 같은 거를 넣을 수가 있어요.
Okay.
그다음에
So she wanted to mention over there that, when other classes can't do any DPS due to a specific pattern that this Caliligos does, Summoner has an advantage of keep doing DPS when you can't do it. Okay, so that play itself looks good enough. I mean, we can probably use the video on the edit on the YouTube one just to show the example. But this is the playstyle that has the fastest clear, guys. And the reason why we think that there's a fastest clear is because of the swiftness summoner itself can attack very, very, very a lot when we can't do it. So when people are running around, summoner is the only class right here that is able to attack because of the summons, plus the aim for the ancient spear is super easy to do. And since you have the animation cancel accordingly, you're just constantly attacking. You have the biggest uptime. So when you say the DPS itself is gonna be much lower, well, what if you miss, right? this particular class is a super high uptime. You can't miss because the summon is gonna attack it anyway, and have a lot of AOE as well. So I have not yet to see like the numbers not popping out, and again, not many people has cleared this particular raid, particular guardian. So to having the fastest time with a specific class over there on the left, and if this class is specifically there, that means the uptime just covers the amount of damage that you do in this particular the raid itself.
그 쇼르디에 있는 치적 특보 이거 세 개가 가장 중요하거든요.
So it's a real good tip for some of the new summoner players out there. This is what I was worried about as well. Like based on the summoner being released and the environment that NA players are in, I asked like, some of the tips that she can give. And as for tripods, other than the tripod, the main tripod that gives you attack damage, right? The sticky moss swamp, the tripod for attack power buff. You have Elcid, the attack damage buff, right? Attack power buff. And then you also have Shurdi for crit rate buff, right? As in for the tripod. So those are okay, but since the particular swiftness build, her damage is so dispersed equally to a point that, even the ancient spear is about 20 to like 25% of the damage pie. Instead of being frustrated for level 5s, maybe getting 4s naturally is much easier, because getting 4s is relatively very simple after the buff. So instead of other classes where you need to have like level 4 of it, like level 5 of everything in one skill really quickly, this summoner class itself is much easier. You're in much better position to just put it out to level 5 and then put it to level 4 and then put it to level 5 after, as you naturally gain some of them during like chaos dungeons, or like when you buy them naturally, right? So also another good tip, a very good tip for someone that knows of both builds, right? Since we have limited combat stats, right? And then the quality of the accessories are pretty bad on NA as well. So what's very, very important for you guys who guys are really serious about making a summoner is when summoner has a very efficient engraving. So if you have to go over the engraving a little bit. So as of engraving, all the engravings are super, super, super efficient for summoner, right? So if you have to take one away, like you can even take away adrenaline, because if you take away adrenaline, it'll be a minus 15%, but you already have a skill called Shurdi that gives you 11.8. If you had to go for 3/4s, you would go something like Grudge Keen Blood, and then a class 3, and then Raid Captain, because Raid Captain you're going high swiftness anyway, so you'll have the full efficiency on that. So if you want to be more a little, save some money, like save some gold, you can do it that way. But the spec build itself, I don't think, even myself agreed to this, is I don't think it is as efficient to go straight up to make the spec build, because you need a very high spec to do that full combo that she just showed you, the 3 Akir combo. You need a certain amount of spec in order for that to happen with the Wealth Runes. So instead of doing an incomplete build for spec, why don't they do something like a swiftness build with 4 3s, because since the floor is so much higher, your DPS pie, and then it's gonna feel more comfortable if you just play that build. 그러면 한번 프로켈 잡으러 가볼까요?
네, 혹시 야계 좀 구해주실 수 있나요? 프로필 잡은 지가 너무 오래돼서.
그래요? Okay. So she said, please be aware that she hasn't killed Prokel in such a long time. So if he makes a mistake, don't go too rough on them. Don't go too rough on her, guys, okay? So she was very worried.
갈까요?
네, let's see. I mean, let's see what that Tibbers though. The Tibbers. Oh my god, the summons of Tibbers like fucking him up. The hammer's like fucking him up, dude. He can't do anything. He's stuck. The Tibbers is fucking him up, dude. Oh my god. She's literally doing nothing, dude. Dude, all the summons doing all the... He's stunned! Prokel stunned, dude! He's wrecked. He's wrecked. Tibbers versus the world. That space bar. Ah! That's oh, but look at that. He was aggro to Tibbers. He was aggro to Tibbers. So she was safe the whole time. Saved by dude, but this is a good point. If you guys are doing a tri-party, the queen of tri-party. The queen of tri-party is the summoner right here, man. Cause she just does so much like safe damage. She does so much safe damage. Wow. She barely got hit. It's a zoo. It was a zoo. So I think we covered everything. We covered the swiftness build that she focuses on. We talked a little bit about the spec build, and she showed some of the combos that they utilize. Obviously, we also talked about, you know, just a comment about the versus, like, you know, the spec build versus the swiftness one. We also talked about some of the tips that we could have as a new summoner player that's going to start in NA, you know, by focusing on which tripods, right? If you think you guys don't have enough combat stats, you kind of utilize a different build to have an easier time to do it. Okay, and yeah, so that's what it did. That's what we did, and let's just wrap up.
룩은 너프를 당하지 않거든요.
It said looks never get nerfed. True.
저도 제가 생각했을 때는 좀 되게 괜찮은 캐릭터인 것 같아요. 그래서 많이 해볼 수 있으면 좋겠습니다.
So she says the summoner is very fun to play. So she hopes that a lot of you guys try her out at least for both builds, swiftness build and also spec build. So as anyone who is interested, as I know most people are interested looking at the interview right now, you can give out summoner a try.
네, 감사합니다. 즐거운 시간이었어요.
She's a little embarrassed for getting the frozen thing. Like she said she was embarrassed getting hit once during Prokel fight, and I told her that oh well, I died with my gunslinger yesterday. So she doesn't need to feel bad by getting hit once. Okay. She did awesome.
도움이 되면 다행이네요.
She said she hoped that it helped you guys in some way. If anyone's interested on the interview, was it the summoner itself? Alright, she's looking at the chat. Make sure you say thank you. 그러니까 감사하다고 지금 다 이게 외국 애들의 표현을 좀 많이 하거든요. Alright, so that was it. That was Nare, guys. Nare plays summoner, and her team has the fastest clear on the hardest content right now. She is one of the best player in Lostark, I think, and she is very kind, and it was very thankful for me, and I hope you guys feel the same way as well, is to spend this time to talk about her class and, you know, talk about some of her tips. She doesn't stream. That's too bad she doesn't stream, but, you know, she'll be around with us maybe in the future if we have additional summoner things to talk about, right? Maybe we could do other things in the future as well. So let me ask that question. 그러면 다음에 혹시 서머너 관련해서 뭔가 아니면 다른 게 또 있으면은 또 나와주실 수 있죠?
네, 좋아요.
Yeah, so she said yes. She said yes, guys. Yay! Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
수고하셨습니다.
Bye. Bye, chat. Wow, she left so fast. She zoomed out, man. Oh my god. She was so nervous.